Congressman David Young, he doesn't care. Rain, snow, sleet. You see any of that stuff out there this morning?
Locusts.
The plague.
It's a beautiful October day.
Turkeys, coyotes. You were saying during the news break, though, you're seeing those all over the place, right?
Yeah, with the combines in the field bringing the harvest in, the fields are getting disrupted, and so you see a lot of coyotes, turkeys, and deer.
You're apparently trying to prove your endurance in this final week. Put together some little tour here.
75 stops over the next 6 days around the district, all counties.
Name them in order. Let's see if he's mentally prepared for this job. Where were you this morning? How's that?
Started out on the Skywalk down at in downtown, and we're giving folks free coffee.
All right.
And waking them up. We'll end up tonight in Perry eating ice cream.
Excellent. DQ? Like your old boss
No,
would
it's a local
require?
Place.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, what are you thinking? You bounce around all over the place here in your 16 counties. Is there a theme you're noticing, not just in your race there, but when you do these coffees and everything else with people? Is there a consistent thing that comes up a lot?
Economic security. I boil it down to 3 securities: economic security, national security, and then just securing of our constitutional rights and liberties, the role of government in our lives, where should we be governed, at what level. But people have anxiety.
And you think economy comes over terrorism?
I think it's parallel. I think all 3 are kind of parallel. In dead heats with one another. Depends on what we see on the TV any given day, maybe with national security. When we heard about those stabbings in the mall in St. Cloud a few weeks ago, people were talking about that above the economy. And so,
I'm not saying this is right, but it feels like we get this at the TV station, hearing from people too. When you see something like those stabbings you mentioned at the mall, it kind of drives it home in a different way than when you're flipping on the TV, listening to the radio of something that happened overseas, because somehow it feels like you can kind of distance yourself from that. But here you're thinking, geez, I could have taken my family up to Mall of America this weekend.
Right. So, national security, terrorism, it's on the minds of Iowans. Now, like you said, when we saw it on TV and it was happening overseas, it was kind of in the back of our minds. But when it happens here on the homeland, it's definitely at the front of our minds. That's just a state away, right? Up in St. Cloud at a mall. I have relatives. My brother lives up there in Inver Grove Heights, and so you just think, wow, this is really close to home.
Joined now by 3rd District Congressman David Young, running for re-election. So you're still technically a rookie. What's the biggest, you've been working in Washington, though, for Senator Grassley for years, but what was the biggest thing that surprised you about doing this job?
Well, obviously, you know what the time that it takes, and so I was ready for the investment of my time for the people of the 3rd District. The Senate is definitely different than the House, different pace, and so I was familiar with that. But working with my colleagues, there's a lot of partisanship out there. You hear about it on talk radio, on cable news, but I truly believe, for the most part, the people there serving in Congress, Democrats, Republicans, they love their country, okay? We all do. We want a strong economy, safe streets, good schools. We just have different ways of getting there. And people are willing to work together. The bills that I've gotten passed have been bipartisan, the Veterans Crisis Line, a biosecurity bill to secure our food and agriculture, those kind of things, bipartisan. And that's what it takes to get things done, and that's how we do it in Iowa.
I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here, but because of the presidential race, which, as you know, sort of can sometimes swallow up all the media attention out there, the way this race has gone with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, how can we realistically expect as voters that you all will be able to work with the winner, whoever it is, in some kind of unified or bipartisan way, whatever you want to call it? How are people going to possibly come together after this?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and so for my record of working across the aisle and getting things done already, I'll work with anybody, whoever's president, and just, remind people as well that whoever the president is, that they are not my boss. They are the president, but I don't answer to them. I answer to the people of the 3rd District, and they want me to work with whoever, without giving up your principles.
But some people
beliefs.
don't, right? Don't you come across some of that out there, that some Republicans don't want you to work with Democrats? They want Republicans to figure this out, put their foot down, and hold out for whatever it may be.
There's a lot of
Planned Parenthood funding, whatever it is.
there's a lot of different viewpoints out there, and I just try to find a way to work together with anybody for the good of the district. And this is a really kind of a purple district, right? About a third, a third, a third. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. And the issues are the same in the urban areas. You got the most populated county in the state in this district, Polk County, and the least populated county in the state is in this district, Adams County. But the concerns are the same: the economy, national security, and the role of government in our lives.
I was doing. Remember that old show, The Match Game? Gene Rayburn.
Yep.
Way back when, my dad used to watch that show. We were doing something just to be a little out of the box on a Monday here, the last hour, and I was asking people. When you think of Hillary Clinton, you think blank. When you think Donald Trump, you think blank. So, Mr. Congressman, when you think Hillary Clinton, you think what?
Today, I think emails.
When you think Donald Trump, you think what?
Hair. Business.
How serious is the email thing? I mean, she's never been found to have done anything illegal. She's not been charged with anything. The Clinton Foundation, while it may be complicated, nothing illegal out of that's ever been charged. What's your take on the email thing? I mean, they say that it's just too much hype about it, and there's nothing there.
Well, we just discovered that there's more emails out there. The FBI did, and so
that may or may not be related.
It may or may not be related, right? So the question is it just a matter of reinvestigating because they've come across new emails, or is it because they found something? And I guess the jury is still out on that, and that's kind of what everybody's waiting on. And I don't know if we're going to know before or after the election, but I think Comey and the FBI need to be consistent and keep doing that job.
When you're out there doing all these events here, undoubtedly in your political career, you've never had a nominee like Donald Trump. He has millions of people behind him, but he obviously talks and says things in a way that no nominee that I can think of does. Is it that we're just in a time where people don't care about the PC guy? And I'm curious, how do you walk the line? Because you don't talk like that. So when you're out there doing all these coffees and everything else, I mean, some of this stuff has to come up. So how do you handle this stuff?
Well, everybody's wired differently. And I tell people, these are the people have spoken. These are the nominees. They're both imperfect. We're all imperfect in our own different ways. We're all going to be voting for a flawed candidate one way or the other. But in the end, it's not a personality contest or an etiquette contest. If it was, neither of them will probably be where they are. But so you look at policy in the end and what you think is good for you and your family, the American people. And so that's why I remind people, if there are issues with the top of the ticket, there are three branches of government. At the congressional level, how do you have somebody there to make sure that you're represented well and keep whoever it is kind of a check and balance?
So much of your district is in the rural area. Of course, so much of our state is the rural area here. What are you finding out there? Is it the economy still that is tops on their minds, or is there some kind of unique theme that's coming up, and how do you address it?
Well, in the rural areas, when agriculture income was down a third from the year before, so that's an issue. When we have record yields right now with our grains and beans and corn, but no market, that's an issue. Rules and regulations are part of it, as well as markets. But national security as well, it can be parallel to that issue, depending on what's on the news any given day.
So your elevator pitch, your closing argument to these folks, since you only have eight days left here, and it's hard to say. I mean, the polls that I saw for a while showed that you should have the advantage going into this. Democrats are trying to push back, saying the polls are tight, and whatever the case is here. What's your closing argument to these folks?
Well, regardless of who's in the White House, who the Speaker of the House will be, Nancy Pelosi, Paul Ryan, or somebody else, that I don't answer to them. I answer to the people here in the 3rd District, that you're my boss. And I'm accessible, 700,000 plus people here in the district. I'll get in front of 1 or 100. It doesn't matter. I go where I'm invited, and we don't screen people to their affiliation or their beliefs. It's important for me to know what people are thinking about on all sides of the aisle from every perspective. And I have a record of being effective in a bipartisan way, getting bills passed, amendments passed, and I'm listening, and I'm a voice for Iowa.
Do you think the electorate out there, though, is this, you and I were too young to remember this well enough, but after Watergate, where there was such an intense distrust of government, and we had Vietnam and Watergate kind of back to back, bang bang like that. Are we going to go through another period like this, where obviously you have Republicans here who don't trust the media. Some of them don't trust the electoral process. You have people on both sides who aren't so sure that the economy is set up fairly for everybody. I mean, are we at a different time here where this distrust is going to get worse? And how do you navigate through that if that's the case?
Well, there is a distrust, and it's I think that's healthy any given time to not put too much faith and confidence in the government, because you have to remember that it's the government that works for you. Um, it's a question of not government in general, but where should government be governing in our lives? At the most local level, where I think it can be more accountable, or at the federal level. We've seen some areas already where the federal government, on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, realize that some things aren't working, and so we're returning those back to the states. In particular, No Child Left Behind, the K through 12 education law, in a bipartisan way, we sent that back to parents in the classrooms in the states. So it's a matter of where government should be governing, and accountability, really, too. The double standard, uh, people hate that. I hate it. The first bill I introduced had to do with making sure that whatever law was passed by Congress and signed into law by the president, that Congress had to abide by it. Whatever court rulings came out of courts, everybody had to abide by it. Regulations or rules coming out of the executive branch, everybody had to abide by it. The double standard really gets to people. It gets to me.
Third District Congressman David Young, thanks for the time this morning. If you go to WHOTV.com, you can see the congressman's predictions he made. He's still sticking with the Cubs, but I'd like to point out he said they'd win in 5. Wrong.
Whoops.
Although the predictions did unite you and your opponent, Jim Maurer. You both said the Cubs are going to win, so the faith is still there.
It's good for TV, right?
The faith is still there. Thank you, sir. Safe travels.
Thank you, David. Thanks for all you do.
More of your calls when we come back here on